Hello, and welcome to Past Your Bedtime. My name's Bev. When my guest today was dealing with postnatal depression, what she refers to in her typical understated way as feeling poorly, she kept finding parallels in the self-help books that she was reading with the challenges felt by farming families when it came to coping and having difficult conversations. The tensions surrounding the future of any farm are already well understood due to its unpredictable nature and dependence on external factors. But these pressures were, in her view, exacerbated by the reluctance of, or inability to communicate effectively across the family unit. This eureka moment would see her work towards creating a set of training resources, workshops and mediation services aimed at managing conflict and creating bridges to resolve some of the challenges being faced. Amy Hughes has long been on my list of people to talk to and is oftentimes cited by other guests as someone I should interview. They were all right. Here we are, getting right into what it is that she believes are the key messages as she prepares to present at the Groundswell Agricultural event later in the week.
From my point of view, it's I suppose it's trying to break this bit of a narrative that we've got where people seem to be waiting for somebody else to tell them how to farm. And I'm like, no, stop. Why? Just do it the way you want to. And I think part of the problem with that is that people don't know how they want to anymore. We've spent so long being guided by government and policy and post-Second World War, increasing food production, et cetera, that as an industry, we're used to being directed. And from the people that I see in the industry, the ones that are really smashing it, for want of a better word, that are profitable and they're happy. And don't get me wrong, family's hard. Everybody has the problems with it, but they've sat down as a family or a business and decided what the destination is, basically. Like, if you don't set the destination, you can't complain when you get lost along the way or you don't get there. So from my point of view, it's sort of that kind of thing. And I suppose just, I'm a disruptor, Bev, you probably know that. And I don't do it to be an arsehole, but I've spent so long in the industry that I am now have enough evidence, albeit anecdotal, and people that I've met all over the world, that I know it can be done. So stop telling me that it can't, because it can. And it's like, it comes down to mindset. It comes down to mindset and a will. And with that comes communication. You can't do anything if you don't communicate well to the people around you. So it'll be a good session. Hopefully it'll be a good session. We've got the graveyard slot though, the 9 o'clock. So that's scuppered my drinking plans for when you did that
on day 2, 9 o'clock on day 2.
On day 2, so
I don't know,
it might be better.
I think it works. At least it's not in the afternoon of day 2 when people are drifting off, I suppose.
Exactly.
People will be disciplined. I'm sure I've seen something online before, but tell me the story of you then, where you grew up and into a farming background, I presume.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So I grew up 10 minutes down the road from where I am now. So on the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire's estate. So we've been tenant farmers there for 60 years or so now. So it was beef and sheep when I was there. We've only got sheep now, much to my disgust. But yeah, so grew up born into a farming family, always really heavily involved in the farm, whether I liked it or not when I was a kid. Yeah, left school and didn't have a bloody clue what I wanted to do. Like, strangely enough, had always been pushed away from farming by my dad. Always this narrative that you could go and do better. You don't want to be a farmer. There's no money in it, blah, 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 all that sort of rhetoric. So I'd never really even thought about working in farming at all. Did my veterinary nursing qualification because somebody offered me a job and I thought, yeah, why not? And then quickly realised actually that I did miss my cows and I missed my farming. So I spent a few years then in cattle fertility. So I did a lot of AI and embryo transfer and flushing and that kind of thing. And then ended up at HDB, which is the levy body. So it wasn't that though. Then it was called Dairy Co. I went into the dairy team at Dairy Co. So that's when I first started working with farmers, doing sort of extension, knowledge exchange, that kind of thing. I had a massive patch right down the middle of the country. It was a bit of a strange region I held. And I loved it. Just loved that, meeting loads of different farmers and listening to them and finding out. Because, of course, before that, I only really knew our farm at home. Yeah. So it was just eye-opening that there was different ways of doing it. Oh, my God. And especially... Go on, sorry.
Do you think that's why Dad pushed you away from it? Because he viewed it in that narrow sort of spectrum?
Yeah, I think he secretly, I think he was probably pushed into it, if I'm honest. I think he was like eldest son, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's funny, isn't it, about this like mentality, because my dad's been very successful. He's made his money out of farming, but for whatever reason, whether he obviously had bigger, in inverted commas, ambitions for me, which now just seems bizarre. I never questioned it at the time, because my brother, he's 11 years younger than me, he has never really had a choice but to farm. So there's that
Right.
male female thing there as well, which
Yeah.
irritates the shit out of me. But anyway, it is what it is. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that came from. I really don't know where that came from.
Well, given the work that you do, have you had that difficult conversation with him then? Why, Dad? Why did you think it wasn't good enough for me?
Yeah, I have. And he just said, well, you were never interested. And I thought, well, that's a total load of shit, because I was there at every lambing time, every calving time, all the time,
Mm.
whether I want it to be or not. So yeah, I don't know. He didn't have a lot to say, to be fair. He's not a good communicator. There was a lot of deflection going on.
He's a Yorkshire farmer, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Close
So
to the territory.
yeah, it is funny. And yeah, and I've said, I had the conversation about why he was trying to keep Joe at home. And that just came back to, I need him, basically. My dad was 40 when he was born. So by the time he was 16, he was mid 50s, going on 60, and he physically needed him.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what that was put down to. But there'll be more to it, Bev. It's not just, it's not just that, is it? It's a legacy thing. To be fair to Dad, at the time when I was growing up, when I was young, he farmed with his brother. They had the partnership together, and that potentially had something to do with it, because there was 6 grandkids. There was 6 kids between us, so he maybe thought it was never going to be an option because of that. But then obviously things changed. The partnership got split, and Dad farmed on his own then. So that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it hasn't held you back then.
Has
So
I know, like a dog with a bone. Sorry. So where did I get to? Dairyco. So did that, decided I missed my physical cow thing, went back to fertility for a bit, but then ended up back at AHDB again in the beef and lamb sector. And I was there for 8 years that time. So worked my way up to head of engagement for beef and lamb, did a lot of national knowledge exchange, a lot of discussion groups, all that kind of thing. And loved it, absolutely loved it. But with the best will in the world, these big organizations are what they are. That isn't a criticism. They just are what they are, aren't they? So I had 2 little boys in very quick succession. It was only 12 months apart, not by planning, and ended up really poorly after Arthur. Ended up with pretty bad postnatal depression, which just threw everything into disarray, quite frankly. That whole piece around, I think this is why I understand the older generation of farmers quite well, is because this identity piece, when you're asked to change your identity, like a farmer being asked to change their identity and give it to the younger generation, me being asked to change my identity from like crazy career woman, the cow lady, to mother, which changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I struggled massively. And that's when I got really interested in the people side of things. So I can't even tell you how many books I read when I was poorly, just trying to make myself better, trying to make sense of what was going on. But the more I learned, the more I drew comparisons to what I was seeing in the industry as well, in agriculture. And like the amount of discussion groups, Bev, that I've done over the years, you only need to get those people at a bar, give them a couple of pints and get them talking. And it is always the relationships, the people stuff that come out. They're not talking about the grass or the cows, or that's what they talk about during the day.
Yeah.
But get them to loosen up a bit. And it's always, Dad won't let me do this. Mum won't let go of the books. I'm falling out with my brother. My wife says I'm not spending enough time at home. Like all that stuff used to come out. And as far as I could see, there wasn't anybody that was really addressing it in the industry, really working in that space. Obviously, you've got Real Success, who are amazing on the leadership, sort of staff management, people side of things. Brilliant. You've got Heather Wildman that does a lot of the succession stuff, but also amazing. But there was nobody sort of working from, what's the way to put it? From my point of view, working on the basics of being a decent human being, like the basic skills that you need to function as a human, being able to communicate, being able to listen, being able to step back from the farm, just even if it's for half a day, and think, what do I want? What am I doing? What do I want? And how do I say that to the people around me? Because yes, succession's hugely important, but there's a lot of work to do before you get to the point of handing a farm over. That's the bit that I sort of work in, the day-to-day people stuff, as it were. So yeah.
Do you think that comes back to what you're saying about the having the end goal in mind? So if it is ultimately that this farm will be passed on to the next generation or not, none of them might be interested.
Yep.
Having that goal in mind isn't enough. It's the pre-work that goes on maybe decades ahead of it that you have to untap.
Yeah, because that's, that might be the thought in the older generation's mind, mum or dad, but have they asked what the younger generation want? Have they thought about what life looks like for them when they step away from the farm or step sideways, whatever? Have they thought about that? It's not all about handing the farm over. There's day-to-day stuff that goes on a farm, especially now when there's so much change in the industry. Even things like changing your grazing rotation, changing your breed of sheep, whatever, it all requires a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those conversations correctly or constructively, that is when nothing happens. Stalemate occurs, nothing changes, businesses fail then because they're not adapting and they're not changing. Marriages fail because the son or daughter, the farming son or daughter, feels torn between the business and the parents and the marriage. It's stuff like that. And it's all right you thinking you know what the crack is. Other people are not mind readers. Not at all. So, sometimes you bring people together, when I work with farming families and they're very much on the same page, they just haven't said it, which is brilliant. Sometimes you bring them together and they are poles apart and they had no idea they were so far apart, not a clue. So, it is day-to-day stuff. It is, son or daughter's getting married. Okay, well, how does that make everybody else feel? Are we thinking that you would require a prenuptial to protect the business? If so, how does that going to make the person marrying in feel? Like, it's all this stuff that just needs a bit of careful conversation, but it doesn't happen. And then resentment builds and stories start getting generated and it just turns into a shit show, quite frankly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How do you get introduced into the conversation then? So I imagine it's quite difficult to recognise in yourself that you need a bit of help. Perhaps you need to talk it through. How does it come by you to get involved with these farms?
9 times out of 10, it is a female from the family that contacts me. Usually when they're at the wit's end, unfortunately. I wish people would contact people like myself sooner than that. Yeah, it's usually a female. And I don't know, I quite often see in farming families, Bev, that the females are the ones trying to hold it all together. We are, I suppose, by nature, not people pleasers, that's not the right word, but you want everybody to be happy, don't you? You're a caregiver, all that kind of thing. So, yeah. So it's usually a female, either when they've had at the wit's end with the marriage because the husband's not there, or they're the mother of the family and they're the sick of people falling out. But it's not often when somebody comes to me that they're actually at the stage where I can go and help them, because of course you've got to get everybody else's agreement for somebody external to go in, haven't you? And that can be the hardest part of it. That can absolutely be the hardest part of it, trying to get everybody to say, yeah, okay, bring somebody in, because people don't want to feel like they're airing the dirty laundry in public. Some people genuinely might not be aware that there's a problem. Some people think that they can sort it out themselves and it's a bit of a sign of weakness asking for help, all those sorts of things that we see within the mental health space, I suppose, as well. So more often than not, I start by helping people have those conversations to try and get everybody in agreement. And that is literally just rewording sentences, asking better questions, listening more effectively, getting better at stating what you want without sounding argumentative, all that kind of thing. So that's how 9 times out of 10 how I get involved with individual families. On a bigger scale, I obviously have my workshops and that kind of thing that I run, podcast, blogs, newsletters. And that is, the workshops are interesting because they are going really well. I never thought anybody would come to them, Bev, because for that exact reason of people don't like to feel like they're airing the dirty laundry in public. Now, that isn't what they are. That isn't what the workshop is. But I understand that is how they could be perceived.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a case of me going out and hunting people down, collaborating with, other organizations in the industry or people that have got discussion groups set up already. And it's I knew it was going to be a slow burn, Bev, when I started the business. I haven't been going 12 months. So
I was going to say, I think I met you last October, would have
yes.
been on the training day. And
Yeah.
and whilst we didn't speak directly, I think you were having a chat with somebody, and it was like you were approaching your launch at that point, and you were just, on the one hand, it's like, great, I've done it, I'm actually going to go for it. But all of that nervousness around, I don't even know if it's going to work.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like I was so yes, I launched my business beginning of September when the kids went back to school, but I didn't launch. That would be the grip course, I think, that you maybe overheard me talk about. So that is the workshop for farmers, and I didn't launch that till December. But Bev, I would never have done that if I hadn't have been so fortunate to get some funding from the Frank Parkinson Agricultural Trust, funded me to develop that workshop. I would never have had the financial stability to leave AHDB. You know what it's like in this day and age. Yeah. We've got 2 little kids and a mortgage and blah, blah, blah. So if I hadn't have got that funding, I would never have, I don't know whether I would have left AHDB when I did. So I was really...
That's it. That's very interesting. Sorry to cut across.
It's all right.
So funding from a benefactor, if you like, not through the scholarship, not through the Nuffield process, but independently. Mm-hmm. If there's anyone listening to this who's got an idea in agriculture, looking to get something off the ground, what's the process for approaching and establishing a form of funding that doesn't come from the bank or require you to be on course?
So I think Helen from Toucan had some Frank Parkinson agricultural.
She did. Yeah.
As well. So basically, it is a case of a lot of Google stalking to find the funding in the first place. So there's a Frank Parkinson Trust. It depends on your business structure. If you're a CIC or a charity, there's quite a lot more available to you, like Esme Fairburn or Banks, Fairburn, I think, Trust. If you're in a national park, there's the FIPL, Farming and Protected Landscape funding.
Yeah.
It is a case of just having a dig about and finding some. And then most of the time, the full sort of details of the application and what the types of things that they fund are on the website. So Frank Parkinson, they fund, but I suppose big projects. I'm not going to say it's a startup. I think by default, a lot of people that have received funding from them have gone on to make that thing commercial going forward, which they really want you to do. They don't want it to be a one-hit wonder type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. There's another one that's I keep flashing up on my Facebook as well. The Tim White Foundation. Have you been getting those on the sponsored posts? I think that's a new one, so that might be worth people looking at. I think they do sponsor professional development as well and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of funding out there, and I would say as well, don't just look for agricultural funding. Look for small business funding.
Yeah,
I've been rubbish at that, and I need to get better at it, but it doesn't need to be just agricultural funding. There is a lot of stuff out there, like North Yorkshire Growth Hub. Yorkshire Growth Hub, are you involved with those? My God, they've got some stuff going on.
The York and North Yorkshire Growth Hub. Well, I supported Toucan on the training day that they did. Gosh, I can't remember now. Before Christmas. Yeah. So so I'm aware of them, but am I part of it? No. It's just...
you get down a rabbit hole if you sign up to newsletters. They've got so much good stuff going on. I've just started a course with them.
No, I get the newsletter.
There
is a lot. It's interesting. It's not, I suppose it's not something I've considered, the funding angle of it for people doing work ancillary to what's going on in farming, but I'm tripping over it more and more. So it's really great to know that that's out there. This is stuff they don't teach you in school, basically.
No, and they should do. They really should do. I'm just trying to think. Michael Blanche got some funding from the Frank Parkinson Trust as well to do his It's About Time podcast series that was a massive success. So, they fund some really good stuff. But there are other pots available. Countryside Fund, I think, have various bits of pots and stuff. So it is a case of just becoming a bit of a stalker and having a look.
Yeah.
And most of them will have the instructions and what they fund on the website.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So take me back. You said earlier, you mentioned it a couple of times. Why is there no beef on the farm anymore? What was the reasoning behind that?
Oh, it's so sad.
Oh,
So
no.
we're very much a hill.
Don't get
It's
all
very,
willy now.
yeah, it's very much a hill farm where we are. So we always used to have about 50 suckler cattle. Um, but they were continental crosses. So by that I mean like Limousin crosses, Belgian blue crosses, that kind of thing, British
Yeah.
cream, whatever. They were always my dad's thing. He was very proud of his cows, always used to top the market with them. The way we grade carcasses in the UK, it's based on a Europe grid. So an E and a U would be, the ones with huge backsides, massive
Yeah.
backsides. So there were those types of cattle. Dad, that's the type of cattle that Dad appreciated. Anyway, unfortunately, those types of cattle take a little bit more looking after and cost quite significantly more to look after. And the crux of it were they just ended up they just weren't making money. My brother had a really nasty incident with one. They have a few they can have a few temperament issues. He got really badly stomped by one. And Dad's not getting any younger. And Joe is very young, he's only 27, and he's got a girlfriend who isn't involved in farming. She's amazing, but he very much, he wanted to do other things with his time. And unfortunately, in winter, especially if you're housing your cattle, putting them in a shed, they're a massive tie. Like anybody that milks cows will know that, they need looking out and feeding either end of the day. So yes, they made the decision to get rid of the cows and up the sheep numbers, much to my disgust. I love cows. But we did have the discussion. I say it was discussion. I don't think it was really. I think I floated the idea about changing breed.
So yeah, the queen of communication here.
Yeah, exactly. About changing breed and, going for a more native breed that could thrive better from just a forage-based diet and blah, blah, blah. And Dad just liked, and I get it. You've got to have some enjoyment in the job. You have to. So if he didn't want to look at Aberdeen Angus or Belted Galloway or whatever, then that's his call. Absolutely fine. So yeah, we'll see. I keep making little suggestions. I'm like, oh, what do you think about your grazing? Do you think you need some cows? Joe's like, oh.
And do you play any active part in the running of the farm?
No, I'm just a free labor. I'm there a lot. I'm there quite a bit, and I'm there doing bits and helping when they need me to help. But no, I have learned my lesson to stay out of the running of it. Like it's their business, it's not mine. So I'll just go. I take the kids up. They love it. I love it. To be fair, just going faffing, doing whatever we're doing, clipping, foot bath and sheet, whatever. So yeah, we'll be there a few times a week, but I do not have any active say, or nor do I try and have an active say in what goes on anymore.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
So how old are your children now?
They're 5 and 6, 2 little boys. Yeah. So feral, absolutely feral.
Do they love being on the farm?
They love it. Yeah, they do. Yeah, it was part of the reason. So we only moved back up here. We're coming up to 2 years now, but they were both born in Shropshire. Me and my husband lived down in Shropshire for 7 years. We were down there. And of course, they were both born in COVID. So that was awful for everybody for a start. But I just got to the point where I was like, I can't. This is hard work, bringing up 2 kids and working on my own, because Sean's a vet and he was out a lot. I was like, I need my mummy. I need my mummy. So yeah, we moved back up here about 2 years ago. So, and that was a big part of it. I wanted them to, it won't be exactly the same childhood as I had, because we're not on the farm, but Christ, we're only 10 minutes away. So I wanted them to have that, like it's there. So it's a shame for them not to be able to be involved in it if they want to. And they're both farming mad, absolutely farming mad. Yeah.
And so what would you say to them maybe in 10 years time? How would that conversation go?
Yeah. Well, do you know, Bev, we've already had it. My youngest is only 5. And he said to me, when are you and Daddy going to buy a farm? And I was like, have we won the lottery? Have I missed something? Like what? And he was like, well, I want to farm. So when are you going to buy one? And so I started laughing, and I thought, and at the same time, I felt so guilty. Like, we'll never be able to give you a farm. That's not going to happen. However, as I said, I'm so privileged to have worked with thousands of farmers across the world, not just in the UK. I now know that you do not need to own a farm to be a farmer. So the conversation will be when they get big enough to understand, if you want to farm, brilliant. I am fully supportive of it. I would like you to go and work on as many different farms as you possibly can. And you need to, and the biggest part of that is you need to be very skilled in business. That's, if they were going to go to college to do anything, I would encourage them to go and do something on business management, because that is the That's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
If, you know, if they take on a tenancy or if they set up a share partnership, share family partnership or joint venture or whatever, that business side of things is going to be so important.
It's knowing the
to them.
numbers, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And it doesn't matter what business you're in.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wish I would have applied myself to that. I started my economics A level, art, economics, and sociology. So I had the people bit down pat. I was really good on the sociology side. Got commendation in my 5th year. Art was a filler, basically. I was fascinated by economics, but anyway, it all went to pot because of a situation at home, which then meant that I quit my A levels after about 3 or 4 months. Went and got a job, and I don't think you know this. I worked for the Intervention Board for Agricultural Produce.
Oh, did you?
As it was back in those days, the dim, distant days of the 80s. So what's now AHDB?
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Well, there you go. You learn
Yeah.
something every day.
Yeah, a clerical job. I mean, this is pre-Microsoft talking. So I was literally, I think my job would be what they call decollating. And it was green line printed stuff that came off of, the printers with the pegs on the end and the holes.
Yeah.
And it would come out carbonized. So I had to separate the top copy from the bottom copy on these massive stacks of green output. And then transferring some of the data in it onto these A3 sheets. So I was writing, serials and the producer and the figure, and there were amounts of money basically that were the payments or the levies to go upstairs to ladies who sat and just keyed all day. It was just, so many steps in the process to get data from one repository to another. I had no understanding of the bigger picture, really. I was 17.
But isn't that, though, Bev, just a prime example of how lucky we are now in terms of the tools and resources that we've got available to us? And that's what I'll say to my kids. You can do any, I know parents always say this to kids, you can do anything you want to. They actually can now. There's nothing that you cannot learn if you really want to. Like when I started my business last year, I ain't got a bloody clue about cash flows, budget, and despite sitting through multiple workshops on cash flows and budgeting, it just used to go in one
doesn't go in.
Yeah. And then when I started doing it myself, I was like, holy shit, I don't know what I'm doing. And so you've got to learn, haven't you? You've got to learn.
I think it is hard. I've been self-employed and I've been employed. I know which I prefer from a sort of day-to-day perspective, but from being self-employed, a lack of IT expertise, an absolute killer when you really need to get things done and Microsoft isn't playing ball or whatever, and learning painfully the accounting side of it.
Yeah.
And either learning and making mistakes or having to pay someone through the nose to actually manage it for you is difficult. So I get all of that piece around it. But I think what I love about the experience of being self-employed and doing some of the work helping with Toucan and the matching process, where we did speak to some of the people inside and outside of farming, but like the Growth Hub, for example, where lots of people with different small business ideas and things, just having that breadth of knowledge of I've been there and these are the mistakes I made.
Yeah.
So here's where to go for help to do that. I think it is going back to what we do or don't get taught at school. These are real life skills that are so important. Doesn't matter what area you're going to go into.
Yeah, they are. I don't go to a lot of events anymore, not agricultural ones. I'll go to the local open days and stuff that go on around here with the Farmer Network. And if it's on anybody's farm that I know, I'll always go and support. Groundswell is the only big event I'm going to this year. I might go to the Nuffield conference if I can fit it in, although November's demented. But the ones that I do go to are ones that have got nothing to do with agriculture, because I value the learning from other industries, because business is business. Business, do you know what I mean? Marketing is marketing. All those sort of transferable skills, they're the ones that I am lacking because I've only ever known agriculture. And I think I know a few farmers as well. When we've done discussion groups, we've often had a guest speaker in from a totally different industry talking about something that is transferable, obviously, not something
Yeah.
that totally random. And they always enjoy that way more than listening to somebody within the industry or whatever. I do think we get a bit blinkered sometimes and think that farming is special. And I'm not convinced. I don't think it is.
I think as an outsider, I think that is just common to anyone who's worked in one sphere or one industry
Yeah.
sector for a
Yeah.
while. So it's not to point that out in farming as being a weakness. I just think you just get totally absorbed in what you need to know for your industry. And even like within agriculture, it's very siloed into your specialities, whether you're
Absolutely. Yeah.
arable or livestock or whatever. So it's just common. It's thankfully a smaller industry to get to navigate your way around.
Yeah.
I've found that, having spent the last year trying to work out who does what and who knows who
Yeah.
and what's available,
Yeah.
it feels a much smaller environment. And also, genuinely, it's a much more helpful environment, more open and honest and collaborative, and people willing to give you their time and a bit of advice. Or that really is just such a positive that
Yeah.
I want to tell people this is massive. There's
Yeah.
such an opportunity, whether they're just coming out of school or further education, or like me, heading headlong to retirement at some point. But it's just so refreshing
Yeah.
to be surrounded by people like that. Such positivity, notwithstanding all of the negative press
Yeah.
and challenges out there.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. There's so much opportunity in the industry. So much. I don't think there's ever been more opportunity. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with you.
Listen, it's lovely to catch up with you and understand what's going on. We've barely touched on what you're up to at the moment, but apart from, I guess you'll be heading down south to Groundswell tomorrow.
Wednesday morning, I'm going to drop the kids off and then get going. So I'll miss the morning, but I will be there Wednesday lunchtime. Yeah. So it'll be good. Looking forward to it. Are you going?
I'm not actually.
No.
It's another long one. I did cereals a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a long old trek down, but I'd managed to go both days and had a good time despite the mud.
Bad weather, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that that's a completely different thing. But for me, at the moment, every talk is interesting. So finding my way to navigate around all the talks about all of the topics all of the time, I kind of have to cut my cloth accordingly and just sort of think, okay, well, where am I likely to find sort of new and interesting information? So I'd come off the back of doing a sort of busy week before, did that one, just taking a bit of a breather now from past your bedtime being on tour, as it were. And then we'll see what happens in the autumn. But yeah, you just got to. There's so much of it will be available online. So I hope you have a great time down at Groundswell. I'm sure you will, and post plenty on the socials so that we can keep up to date with what's going on.
No, I will. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot. You take care now. As I finished up editing the episode this morning, I felt like I'd done you, the listener, a disservice. There was so much more I could have talked with Amy about. What a force of nature she is. But as always, time is against us, and so I'm sure we'll get back together again at some point later in the year. I'm so grateful to her for squeezing me in ahead of her trip to Groundswell, and if there's a recording of her session that becomes available, I'll post a link to it in the show notes. If you'd like to contact Amy, you can get in touch with her via her website, empowerag.co.uk. Again, I'll link it in the show notes. And so to next week. Well, just as the weather returned to normal temperatures again, looks like we're in for a second heat wave of the year. We've talked a lot about how extreme temperatures play havoc with the growth rate of crops and their yields, and some livestock challenges. But there's a section of livestock rearing I've yet to cover at all, and it's one that doesn't always get much in the way of good press coverage. Join me as I talk to Fred Allen, a pig farmer from Nottinghamshire. Fred gives me a masterclass in pigs and some eye-opening facts about the state of pig farming in the UK. As for the hot weather, well, that brings its own specific challenges when it comes to the welfare of these animals. And so after a busy few weeks, I was delighted to catch him in a rare moment of cool quietness. Thanks as always for listening. Subscribe or follow to make sure you don't miss future episodes. And if you've any thoughts or questions about any of the episodes or requests for subjects you'd like me to cover, drop me a line in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But for now, if it is past your bedtime, or perhaps it's time to turn in. Until next time.